Hello, welcome to Past Life Regression Stories number two. Um, this regression happened a few years ago. It was a female from another country. To keep confidentiality, I keep it as sparse as possible. But it's interesting that it was somebody from another country because, as you'll see, it's kind of a very American story. And So this woman went to a past life where she was a Native American. She was the hunter for the tribe, and what happened was that a member of the tribe killed his wife. So I'll say he now because we're talking about the past life as this hunter guy, even though the client was a female. So a member of the tribe, obviously somebody that he had known his whole life growing up, killed his wife and ran away. And so the tribe gave him the task of going out to find the guy. And the task was basically bring him back for judgment. And if he won't come with you, you have to kill him. And this hunter guy really did not want to do it, but he had to. It was something that was just part of the deal. He had to obey what the tribal leaders told him to do. So he went out looking for the guy. It took days of tracking, but he was a tracker. So it was fairly easy for him to find the guy. And when he found the guy, he said, you're going to have to come back with me to the tribe to face judgment. And the guy refused and started fighting him. And reluctantly, he killed the guy. And he really felt bad about it. He felt really horrible about it. And he kind of understood the rules and he understood the logic behind it, but it wasn't what he really wanted to do. So in making his way back to the tribe, he decided, I don't want to go straight back. I can't deal with it. I'm going to take the long way. So he kind of just meandered through the mountains for a few weeks, and he comes upon this white guy, this trapper. And he decides he's just going to kind of hang out with the trapper, this kind of mountain man guy. So they start trapping. And he ends up never returning back to his tribe. He was just really too ashamed to go back to the tribe. Even though he did what they told him to do, he just felt marked. He felt dirty. He felt horrible about having killed this guy. Even if the guy deserved it, he just didn't want to do that. He didn't want to be a killer. So he ends up trapping with this guy. And they kind of make a lot of money. He ends up learning English by hanging out with the guy. And, they make a lot of money. They trap a lot of stuff. And eventually, because of his hunting skills and the other guy's skills, they start getting bounty hunter gigs. They start finding these, wanted dead or alive posters, like $500 if you bring the guy in, whatever. So they kind of transition from trapping to bounty hunting. And they basically become legends in the area because everybody that they go looking for, they find. And they make a lot of money out of these bounties. And eventually they have so much money saved, and they're really tired of being bounty hunters after a while, that they end up going to San Francisco. And when they get to San Francisco, they notice the plight of the Chinese. I mean, this is like pre-gold rush San Francisco. It's like a little village. Um, but there are Chinese immigrants, and I asked kind of like, oh, do they work on the railroad or whatever? And the answer was no. The ones that worked on the railroad were way better. These people were like on the side of a road in a ditch, basically, starving. They were in really bad shape. So, these two guys who had been bounty hunters, one Native American, one white guy, one reason they went there is they wanted to kind of do some good in the world. So they started helping these Chinese people out. And then they somehow come upon the idea of funding a restaurant. And so, according to the client in this regression, now I don't know if any of this is historically accurate, but I almost believe it more when it's somebody from another country that doesn't know all the background stuff. So, basically, according to this story, it's the first Chinese restaurant in San Francisco. And it's basically like that's the beginning of San Francisco's Chinatown. So anyway, then they end up learning fluent Chinese. They're very active in the Chinese community, and they help them start other businesses, and it benefits them. They make money from the businesses, so then that allows them to help other businesses. And there was a funny kind of side story within this regression where he's walking around and there's this Chinese kid, a little kid, 5 years old, maybe younger, that's crying, and a girl, she lost her mommy. She's crying for her mommy in Chinese. And so he approaches the girl speaking fluent Chinese to the girl, like, what's up, and describes this little girl hanging on to his back with great strength, and that never let go for like a couple of hours. And they kind of went around and asked all the Chinese people, is there somebody that lost their mom? And then eventually they reunite the kid with the mother. And so then one day, a journalist comes. And this journalist had heard stories of their bounty hunting back in the day. So the journalist asked the Native American guy, kind of, can I interview you about that, whatever. And he just said, no. Talk to this other guy. The other guy's name was Steve. It's like, talk to Steve. Steve will tell you whatever you want to know. And so the journalist goes to the white guy, Steve. And he says, can I interview you about your bounty hunting past, right? And the Native American guy is sitting there and says, and listens in on the whole thing. And Steve basically bullshits him the whole way, right? Just makes up a bunch of stuff, tall tales of the Wild West kind of thing. And the Native American guy is kind of just, laughing to himself about these crazy stories, because he doesn't even, like the true stories would have been good too, but he just tells them lies. So anyway, that guy leaves, whatever, he got what he wanted. And then we fast forward a little bit later, and the white guy dies. And the Native American guy is just racked with grief. He's inconsolable. And, he just really misses this guy incredibly. And then we fast forward, and the Native American guy dies too. And when he dies, he goes into the afterlife, right? Because in the past life regression sessions, we go through the death in a lot of the past lives, and then we go into what happens after the death. So he goes into the afterlife and he reunites with Steve, the white guy. And Steve says, "Hey, Tonto, how you doing?" And he's like, "That's not my name. What are you talking about, Tonto?" And he said, "Yeah, you know that guy that I did the interview to. He wrote books and stories and whatever, and I'm the Lone Ranger, and you're Tonto. So how's it going, Tonto?" And so anyway, at the end of this whole session, I find out this is the Lone Ranger story. I never heard any Lone Ranger story where they, ended up founding San Francisco Chinatown. With all this stuff, I don't know if it's accurate. Yeah, it's like I know it's very entertaining, and I know that when the client goes through the life, there's emotion, there's all kinds of stuff going on. But this is one of those kind of mind-blowing stories that, you kind of think, what, oh, okay, what the hell was that? Now, in the client's regression session, and you have to understand in past life regression, this is the important thing. It's not about getting information about past lives. It's really about transforming your own energy. That's really the important thing. Certain aspects of her life, were helped by this information, by feeling this energy of being this person. So anyway, I stumbled upon Tonto, and possibly heard the real story of the Lone Ranger and Tonto. So anyway, if anybody actually has more history on San Francisco's Chinatown, the Lone Ranger, and all of that, put it in the comments. Send me a link. I'd be very curious, because it's not like I go and research all my sessions. I just keep doing new ones. But thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more. Bye. Oh, and if you want any information about what I do, there's information below, or you can go to my website, andysway.com. Thanks.